What's up, everybody? Out here at the track for an acceleration workout, and today I want to give you 3 tips for better acceleration. If you get your acceleration right, the rest of your race is going to be easy. If you're inefficient during acceleration, if you're all over the place, if you're not moving properly, then it's going to be a lot harder to reach top speed, maintain your speed, and run a good 100-meter. So what are the 3 tips for acceleration? Tip number 1, you want to fully push out of the blocks, especially on the first step and the 0 step. So the 0 step is the initial push out of the blocks, and we really want to emphasize, especially in practice, that you're fully pushing through that block. During the start is the only time that you have really to push forcefully backward against the ground, because as you accelerate, your ability to push is going to go down with every step. So the first step, the first push out of the blocks, and the first initial step onto the track, those steps give you the opportunity to really push, produce a lot of horizontal force. And if you're able to produce a lot of horizontal force with high rates of force development in your start, then you're going to exit the blocks at a higher velocity, and you're going to be running faster when you hit the ground on that first step and the second step of the race. So when you're in practice especially, you really want to focus on fully utilizing the block to push all the way through the pedal, extend your ankle, extend your knee, extend your hip, forcefully and aggressively. You don't want it to be slow, you don't want to get stuck there, but you want to be very forceful and aggressive with those pushes on the first step and the second step. And if you do that, you're going to exit the blocks at a higher velocity, be running faster, and you'll have a better start. Tip number 2 for acceleration is that you want to emphasize the strike angle or the attack angle into the ground, especially on the first step out of the blocks. So you're in your blocks, you push off the blocks. That first contact you make with the track, you need to really emphasize hitting at the proper angle. The angle that you need to hit at is going to be slightly different for you versus me versus everybody based on our force output capabilities. But whatever the case, you really want to emphasize a downward, backward, active strike into the ground on that first step. If you cast out in front of you, you're going to be braking on that first step. And we want to use the first step of the blocks, the block start, acceleration, all that. We want to use that first step as much as possible to be purely propulsive with how we're applying force to the ground. And if our foot crashes forward into the ground, we're braking. So we want to really make sure that as we're coming out of the blocks, that we emphasize a very aggressive downward, backward shin angle into the ground with a stiff ankle contact on the first step and the second step out of the blocks. And if you do that, you're going to be able to continue to accelerate on those first couple steps, as opposed to accelerating for the first push, crashing and braking on the first step, first contact, and then having to overcome that and re-accelerate into the second step. Instead, if we can aggressively attack at a nice aggressive angle back into the track, then we're going to continue to accelerate, we're not going to brake, and you're going to accelerate much faster, use a lot less energy, and it's going to be a lot easier to accelerate up to top speed. Now, the third and final tip for today about acceleration is that we want to make sure that we let our posture rise throughout acceleration. Elite sprinters will be upright somewhere between 15 and 30 meters. Less experienced sprinters will probably be upright before then or at the same point in the race. The issue is that if we try to hold ourselves down, if we try to stay too low relative to what our force outputs will allow, then our torso is going to be forward, our center of mass is going to move forward, and we're going to have to strike in front of the body, braking more, putting our hamstrings at risk, and running in a way that is not optimal for running fast. So instead, we want to allow our posture to go from a nice forward angle out of the blocks to an upright position by about 20 meters. And if you do this, it's going to be a lot easier to put your foot down under you. It's going to be easier to continue to accelerate as you're in upright sprinting. It'll be easier to apply vertical force, and you'll be braking less each step, which will allow you to accelerate further into the race. If you're braking early in the sprint because you're crashing forward because your torso is too low and you're casting out in front of the body, it's going to be hard to accelerate. So make sure that you're allowing your posture to rise. It doesn't mean you stand straight up out of the blocks, but oftentimes when people do pop up out of the blocks, it's because they tried to go too low. They had to put their foot out in front of them, and then putting their foot out in front of them sends them straight up into the air. So sometimes trying to go low will lead to the exact opposite outcome, which will be popping up out of the blocks. Instead, if you let your posture rise at a natural angle and a natural progression of your posture, then you'll be able to stay lower than you would compared to if you were trying to stay low and you crashed and then popped up. So make sure you allow your posture to rise as you sprint through the race. Make sure you're attacking back aggressively with nice stiff ankles on the first step and second step out of the blocks, and also make sure that you're fully utilizing those first steps to be forceful, to push, spend a little bit more time on the ground. And if you do all these three things, you're going to run faster and have better acceleration.